And I was telling everybody that pretty much everybody today is from Orange County. I do have one from Marin College or College of Marin. I can't remember which order those two words go in. And then I have someone from Dwight Global, and I'm not sure where they're actually located at. They have campuses across the world. So I'm trying to see if she is on yet, and she's not. So we'll go ahead and get started. So the course we're going over today is the functional user training, and we're going over part one. Functional user training is broken into two different sessions. So today we'll be going over the basic tools within Design Tools, and then functional user training 2, Kenneth is the one that teaches that course. Let me just open chat real quick. You're welcome to Marin, sorry. All right, so you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask questions at any point during training today. I'll try to keep an eye on chat too. But this course that I have open right now, this is a course that's available to you on Canvas Commons. So if you need to do any training on your end and you want to have a course to use, you do have access to download this or import it from Canvas Commons. If you just look up City Labs, I believe you can find it through our name. Now, a couple things before we get started today. If you have faculty and staff that aren't familiar with the tools, we've come up with a few different analogies to help kind of explain to them what these tools are for. One of those being that if your course is, if you consider your course your masterpiece, then the design tools are the brushes and paints that help you to create that masterpiece. So they are tools that are fully integrated into Canvas to help you make your course more visually appealing and just better organized in general for your students. Now, the DesignPlus package consists of 3 different tools. The one that we'll be spending the majority of our time on today are the rich content editor tools. So with the rich content editor tools, these help you to style and organize your content within the rich content editor, so they with little to no HTML and CSS experience. So these are available, as I said, anywhere within the rich content editor, which is your content pages, assignments, discussions, and quiz descriptions, the syllabus, and announcements. And today, again, we'll be going over that basic level of tools that's turned on by default, but Functional User Training 2 will teach you the intermediate and advanced tools. These are different levels of the tools that you can turn on as you become more comfortable with the tools and are looking for those more advanced settings. Now, Design Tools is extendable. So if you have different sub-accounts within your institution, or maybe you have even different campuses across the world, then you can set up the tools at a sub-account level. This will make it so that you can set up customizations for those specific sub-accounts rather than just an institutional level. The second tool we'll be going over today is the Upload Embed Image tool. So this is kind of like a Photoshop Lite. It helps you to upload, crop, resize, and embed your photos right within Canvas. And then we have the multi-tool. So this is what helps you to rapidly build your course shell and change due dates all on one page rather than having to go around from assignment to assignment and make those updates. It's really the powerhouse of this tool that makes creating that course shell much faster and easier. Now, when Kenneth, our developer, created the design tools, he created around this idea of chunking content. So with the way Design Tools is built, you'll end up putting content within content blocks. Now, a typical content block consists of a heading and then content underneath. As you create these content blocks, they'll be housed within a Design Tools wrapper. So the wrapper is what's added to your page when you select a theme for that page. Anything that's housed within the Design Tools wrapper will get the design or the style that you're creating applied to it. So you'll end up having multiple content blocks housed within that Design Tools wrapper. If you get to a point where maybe something looks like it's not getting the style, you do need to look for that Design Tools wrapper and make sure that it is housed within it. Now, building with content blocks makes it really easy to go in and reorganize your content. Maybe you get to a point where you want to rearrange a page. You can easily drag and drop content blocks or add and delete them as needed to help you quickly go through and make any of those changes within a content page. Now, this page here, you'll notice that we have these alternating grayscale and white blocks in the background. These are individual content blocks. So this particular theme that's been applied to this page visually breaks up those content blocks for you so that your students can better focus in on that chunk of content, making it more digestible for them than, let's say, a page of run-on text. Now, on this page, I'm going to scroll through the different themes that you have available to you. And as I scroll through the themes, you'll see that for you as faculty or designers, it gives you some flexibility and a sense of creativity in how your course looks, the visual look of your course. But for your students, the basic structure of your courses is remaining the same. So it creates a sense of continuity for them. They're able to jump into a course from either semester to semester or even within the same term and know exactly how to navigate that course. So it makes it easier for them rather than having to, it's not quite such a learning curve as you move from instructor to instructor. Now on this page, I'm going to go over the different pieces we'll be learning how to use today. One of them is adding in content blocks. So there's two different types of content blocks that you can add into your pages. You can either build out your own custom content blocks, or you can also set up institutional template blocks. So these would be quick pieces that you want your faculty and staff to be able to add with a click of a button so that they're not having to learn how to redesign them over and over again, such as pieces like objectives and ratings. Again, those are just quick pieces that you want them to be able to click a button and add in that content block with the style that you've set up ahead of time. The basic styling tools we'll be going over are working with images. So I'll show you how to change the shape, the size, the border of your images. I'll show you how to work with links and turn them into buttons. We have a variety of different button styles and sizes. I'll show you how to style your lists and make them accessible easily, including this alphanumerically sortable list. I'll show you how to turn that on. Working with, I'm sorry, I think I said lists, I meant tables. Working with lists, there's a variety of different list styles I'll show you how to use. And then I'll show you how to mix and match those list styles to create more complex lists. Now between the Canvas icons and an icon font we pull in called Font Awesome, there's over 2,000 different icons that you can use within your content easily. And I'll show you how to use those too. Now to take a look at the Design Tools interface, I'm going to go ahead and edit this page. And depending on how your institution has the tool set up, it'll either show the little rocket ship in the upper right-hand corner, and it looks like this did not reset. Let me go ahead and reset this really quick. All right, so if you have the rocket ship showing up in this upper right-hand corner, all you need to do is select that rocket ship. But if you have the tools hidden at your institution, that rocket ship won't be visible. You'll need to know one of two keyboard shortcuts in order to open up that sidebar. So those two keyboard shortcuts are either Alt-Shift-D, as in Delta, again, Alt-Shift-D, or Control-1. Now, depending on which browser you work with, one typically works better than the other. One of them does add in an extra character when you use that keyboard shortcut. It's really hard to find keyboard shortcuts that aren't in use anymore, so you just have to figure out which one works best for you depending on the browser you're using. So that's how you would go, that's how you would have access to the tools. But again, if you don't have the tools hidden at your institution, this little rocket ship will show up automatically as you edit a page. You can go ahead and select that rocket ship, and it'll open up the Design Tools toolbar. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come into the little 3 gears icon over here. This is the settings for the toolbar. If you have the tools hidden at your institution, you'll have 2 toggles here at the top of the page. The first one will make it so that it will unhide the tools. This is a user by user setting. It doesn't impact anybody else at your institution. But if you have this toggle, because the tools are hidden, and you turn on the top toggle, it'll make it so that the tools automatically or the launch button automatically shows up for you when you edit a page. For everyone else, they'll still have to know those keyboard shortcuts in order to access it. But for you as a user, it'll remember your user settings and you won't have to remember those keyboard shortcuts. For those that already have the tools visible to everyone, you'll notice that there's just one toggle here. I'm going to go ahead and turn that toggle on. And what it's going to do is every time I edit a page now, it's going to automatically open up the Design Tools toolbar and have it ready for me to use. This just saves me a little bit of time and a click as I go or I move from page to page for editing purposes. So I don't have to actually click on that rocket ship and wait for it to load. Now, the top row of the Design Tools toolbar is what we call the jump menu. Yes, so Control-Alt-D or Shift-1 are the keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so the top row is what we call the jump menu. And depending where you're at within your content, that top row will change. So it's responsive to where you're at within your content and what's housed within your rich content editor. You'll always have the option showing to add and rearrange content blocks or to work with a specific element within that page. And what this does is it gives you a quick link to the tools. So it, instead of having to dig around and find those tools within the sidebar, it will open those up for you and make it easier and quicker to find them. Now, if I click into the stylized heading, that's when we have access to the theme tools or working with our stylized banner text. So again, this is responsive to where your cursor's at and what's housed within your page. The second row here is what we call the views row, and it gives you a few different views to take a look at. So by default, it's always going to be set at the blocks view. The blocks view, if we look here within the rich content editor, you'll notice that you have different outlines to different elements within the rich content editor. So what this is doing is it's giving you a look at the structure of your content. You're able to see that individual content blocks have this double blue outline around them, while your paragraphs have this grayscale border, and as we scroll down, you'll just see a few different borders within here. This is handy For instance, when maybe we hit enter a couple times after overview and we see we have some empty space in here then, but in the blocks view, you're going to be able to see clearly that you're working with 2 empty paragraphs here. You can jump into those paragraphs and enter in content as needed, but you can also delete those out and work with that space. If we move over to the browser view, this is going to give us an idea of what our content is going to look like to our students within a browser. You'll notice that all of the structure has been stripped out and it's no longer clear what that space is. So again, that blocks view does give you a better look at the structure of your page. The browser view is an approximate view because depending on the size of the browser your students are viewing their content in, that can change the layout slightly. But also there's a few different features within the tools where what is showing in the rich content editor isn't necessarily how it's going to look within the browser. So some of these elements are the dynamically built out elements such as accordions and tabs. Those don't show up as built out within the rich content editor. They just build out once that page is saved and you're viewing it within the browser. But it does give you a good idea on the flow of your page. The third view is the app view. And what this gives you is an idea of what your content looks like on a smartphone screen. So depending on what type of smartphone your students are viewing the content on, maybe it's Android or iOS, they both have their own slightly different native styles, so that can change the look of the content, but also just depending on the screen size. So Design Tools is responsive all the way from a small smartphone screen up to a full-size desktop, and the screen size is always going to change the layout of your content slightly. But again, this does give you a good idea of what your content would look like on a small smartphone screen. The last style that you can view is the no style, and this strips out all of that complex styling and just leaves the very basic HTML behind. So if you were to, or if your students were to view the content offline, or if you were to export this course to another institution that didn't have access to design tools, this is what your content would look like. It's still completely usable, but all of that content or all of that styling that you create with the tools has now been removed. Most of the tools have a little blue link, or depending on your institution's colors, it could be a different color link, I suppose. But the links will give you access to additional information on that piece of the tools. If I come in here and I select this link, you can see that it opens up a description of all of those different views. So this is just a way, if you forget what a specific tool is for, it's a way to give you a little bit more information, maybe some best practice information on how to use that particular piece of the tools. The rest of this area here is where the real meat of design tools is housed. So this is where you can start adding in content blocks, create and editing. The style is where you can work with themes and banner images. Customize the style is always where you're going to find the tools to work with images, links, tables, and lists. Accessibility, we'll be going over the 3 different accessibility tools we have today, and then you have the Get Help section, and we'll go over that at the end of training today. Any questions at all on the Design Tools interface? Okay, so moving on.
Michelle?
Sure.
Yes, the shortcut's not working for me. Is that something that I need to activate beforehand to make sure that it actually works?
So neither of those are working?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Let me... Let's see. Are they working for you, Janet?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It may be, I'll send Jorge a separate message, but it may be the same login issue that we encountered with
The
the
other day.
Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Okay. All right. If not, remind me at the end and I'll get a hold of Kenneth and we can maybe jump on and do some troubleshooting.
That'd be great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, the next page is just a checklist of all the different, or a list of all the different things we'll be going over today. So I'm going to go ahead and jump past this. The keyboard shortcuts are the same. So Control-Alt-D, Control-Alt-D, I'm trying to look at my computer now. Or, I'm sorry, Alt-Shift-D or Control-1, either one of those will work. All right, we're going to jump into building out some content. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this page. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a theme for this page. So the theme is always this little puzzle piece up here. Selecting this puzzle piece in your jump menu will open up the theme tools for you down here. So again, the jump menu just saves you some time from having to dig around and find those tools. So I selected that puzzle piece, and you'll notice that the choose a theme tools opened up. There's a number of different buttons here that I can take a look at. And as I hover over each one, you'll notice that it gives me a preview of that particular theme. So the different themes add in a stylized heading as well as some style to those individual content blocks. I'm going to go ahead and select a theme here. And you'll notice that I now have the beginning and the end of the Design Tools wrapper, and those show up there within my rich content editor. And I have the stylized heading. After I have that theme added into my page, I want to start building out some content. So I'm going to come up to Add Content Blocks. Once I select that Add Content Blocks at the top, it's going to open up this pop-up here. And you'll notice that I have a number of different institutional block templates. These institutional block templates are created at an institutional level. So when we create or when we install design tools at your institution, we create a customizations course. And this is where you can create these block templates specific for your institution or even for different sub-accounts within your institution. But as I come in here, you'll notice I have a variety of different blocks I can select from. I'm going to go ahead and add a few of these to my page. As I select these, you'll notice that that particular block is being added in to my rich content editor with as individual content blocks. So the double blue lines indicate individual content blocks within that design tools wrapper. So again, anything that you want to have the style you're creating, you want it to be inside of that wrapper. I can also create my own custom content blocks. So maybe I just want an empty content block. I can come in here, not type anything, and I can just hit enter or hit the plus button. And I now have an empty content block that I can start filling with content. If I wanted to have a custom content block called current events, I could type current events up here and again hit enter or the plus button, and I now have a content block with the heading current events that I can start adding in content to. I'm going to go ahead and close out that pop out and come back to the sidebar here. And you'll notice all of those content blocks that we just added in have their own area over here in the sidebar. So that introduction text here, the readings content block, all of them have their own item here. Let's say we decided we didn't need this empty content block. We can use that X button to remove that block completely. Maybe we also decided we didn't need an activities. As I select any of those X's, you can see that that block is removed completely from the rich content editor. Now, this current events block does not currently have an icon set up with it because this is one that I custom created myself. So what I can do is I can come over to this little gray section here and select it, and it'll open up the icons area. So I can look for, maybe I'm going to look for a newspaper. I can type in a keyword up here, and you can see there's a couple of different newspapers that came up. I can go back and forth and see which one I like, and I now have an icon associated with that content block. Same thing, if I didn't like the icons for these other blocks, I could simply click on them and change out those icons. You can also rearrange. Maybe I want the list of assignments to be a little higher on this page. Maybe I want current events to also be higher. So I can drag and drop those individual content blocks and rearrange them very easily within my rich content editor. Any questions about adding a theme to the page or adding in content blocks? Okay, I'm going to go back up to the theme tools. And up to this point, we've been looking at a basic page within with the tools. We're going to move over to front pages. So I'm going to click the button over here, and as I toggle back and forth, you can see that that list of buttons does change a little bit, and that's because some of the themes are only available as a front page theme. Would a content block be used for a unit or modules within a unit? So content block modules would only be created on the modules page, while a content block is within an individual page. So you could have, if you were going to list out your units on an individual page, we could say, we could rename this could be unit 1, unit 2, unit 3, and then you could have the links or whatever you want within that to take you there. Does that make sense, Kimberly?
A little bit.
Okay. How are you thinking of using those or building that out?
So let's say I had 5 units, and each unit had several topics, and each topic had several assignments. Like, how would that structure look?
And you want to keep it all on one page?
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay. All right. So this, you would just use this to build out an individual page. So you might want to name this page Unit 1, and then have the heading for that Unit 1, and then you'd build out these individual content blocks for that unit. Then you would just go in and build out another page for Unit 2 and build out the content blocks for that page.
So then each unit will have its own page?
That would probably be ideal. It's always better to break up your, on a design perspective, it's always good to break up your content so it doesn't end up being a long run-on page for students. They're able to easily focus in on that Unit 1 than everything being on a single page. And I'll get a little bit more into that, to building out your units or building out your modules once we get into the multi-tool.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So I showed you how I moved over to front page themes. So from basic to front page. And again, as I hover over these individual buttons, now you're going to get a preview of what these different front page themes look like. So with the front pages, you're going to still have that stylized heading up at the top, but you're also going to have a banner image and some navigation items. You'll also notice that there's a block that shows up underneath these previews. This particular theme recommends that your banner image have a 10:3 ratio. A 10:3 ratio is the same as 1100 by 330 pixels. So your institutions probably already have a default banner image that will show up for you. But if you don't have banner images submitted yet for your institution, if you don't have a default banner image and you want to submit something else to us, please make sure that that is an image that can be easily cropped or is already cropped into a 10:3 ratio, which is the same again as 1100 by 330 pixels. And this is where that image will show up as. It'll be your default image for your faculty and staff. So I'm going to go ahead, going down a little bit more. You'll notice there's a second type of information block that shows up underneath. These recommend you have a 10:3 ratio image. This particular theme requires that you have a 10:3 image ratio banner image. This is because this particular theme, when we're looking at it, you'll notice that the navigation hovers over that left-hand side there. So if that image wasn't tall enough, the navigation would actually hover down over your content, making it hard for your students to read. So those that have that hovering style do require a 10:3 image ratio image rather than recommends it. So I'm going to go ahead and select one of these themes. Once I select it, you'll see that we now have that stylized heading, the default banner image, and navigation showing up. And I'm going to continue working my way down the toolbar. So the first thing I'm going to come to is customize banner text. Now, whenever you have the option to use the sidebar to edit text, we do recommend you do that because it makes it much less likely that you might break the style within the rich content editor. So I'm going to come in here to these text boxes, and I want to call this city, and I'm going to use my tab key to work down through these boxes. Labs, maybe I just want this to say welcome. I'm going to tab again, and as I start entering in the subtitle and the description, it's going to add in new pieces to my stylized heading here. So I'm going to type in subtitle, tab down again and type in description, and you can see as I start typing those in how those new pieces were created within my stylized heading. If I decide I don't want those, I can clear out those text boxes and the subtitle and description have been removed from that. You'll also notice that there's a toggle here. By default, the Canvas title is turned off. And that's because with most of our users, since they already have the stylized design tools heading, they don't usually want to also have that large H1 heading at the top, their native Canvas H1 heading at the top of their pages. But if you did want that native Canvas heading and the stylized design tools heading, you can turn this Canvas title toggle on. Once this page is saved, your page will then have that large Canvas title at the top of it, as well as the design tools heading. The next piece we come to is the banner image, choosing a banner image. So depending on if your institution has submitted banner images or not, you'll notice that there's a couple different headings here, and next to them it says institution. So if your institution has banner images that were submitted, they will show up here in the institutional section, and you're able to come in here and select any of those images. They're already set for you at a 10:3 ratio, and you can easily come in and change out that default banner image. You also have access to your course files. So if there's an image that you would like to use within your course files, you'll notice instead of institution, it says course here, and we can come in and select any of these images and use it as our stylized banner image. Now, a lot of times faculty members don't necessarily want to use an image that was submitted for them by the institution or images that are already housed within their course files. this is where the upload embed image tool comes in handy. So I'm going to make sure this image here is selected, and I'm going to come up to the toolbar. Now, we're looking at the upload embed image tool, this little blue icon here, not to be confused with the Canvas's native embed image. It is this blue one here. If your institution has a number of LTI tools already, it'll show up under the blue V icon. And as you hover over the blue V icon, you'll be able to view additional LTI tools, and you'll find the upload embed image tool there. So I'm going to go ahead and select the upload embed image tool. It's going to open up this box for me, and it's going to have some steps to walk me through. So the first step is to choose an image from your computer. So I'm going to select an image here. Now, obviously that image isn't already cropped into a 10:3 ratio, but I know that this particular theme does recommend I have a 10:3 ratio image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to choose aspect ratio, and you'll notice I have a number of different ratios I can select from. I'm going to select 10:3, and it gives me this cropping block here that I can drag and pull and get that image looking exactly how I want it to look in my banner image area. If you had a custom ratio that you wanted to use, you can type that in here, but as I showed you, there are a number of different ratios already preset for you. There's some tools here if you need to zoom in or zoom out. If you are a keyboard user and need to use your arrow keys to move your cropping area, you're able to do that. If your image is slightly skewed and you want to even it out, level it out, you have some tools to work with that. And then you have some additional tools that you can use to play around with and make sure that image is going to look exactly how you want it to in your banner image area. Now, the other piece here is this little green area. So this is telling us that currently, as this image is cropped, it can fill 100% of my canvas width without distorting. This is really important to your banner images. You want to have nice, crisp, high quality images to use as your banner images because they are going to span the width of your canvas page. So for banner images, you do want to make sure that you are in the green and ideally 100% here in this area. If I was using an image that was lesser quality, or maybe I wanted to crop out a ridiculously small portion of this image here, you'll notice that that information down there changes as I move this cropping area. So if I wanted to crop out this very small piece, you can see that now that image could only fill 26% of my canvas width before it would start pixelating and looking poor. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch that back out, crop it however I want. I'm good to go on that image quality. It can fill 100% of my width. I can crop and resize that image. It's going to give me a preview of what that image looks like or will look like when I embed it into my banner image area. I can change the file name. If I already have an image with this file name, I can overwrite or rename that. I can download this image to my desktop if I want to use it somewhere outside of Canvas. I can upload it to my Canvas course files. Or the third option is to upload it to my Canvas course files and embed it into the banner image here. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, upload and embed. It's making some calls to Canvas to make sure that image is available in your course files. And now you can see that banner image with the proper ratio has been uploaded into the banner image area. Now, a couple updates we have coming fairly quickly to this tool are, you notice that right now you can only select an image from your computer, but with the updates, you'll also be able to select your course images. Currently, if you wanted to use one of the images in your course files, you'd have to download that image to your laptop and re-upload it again with the Upload Embed Image tool. With the new updates to this tool, you'll be able to just automatically search your course images and pull that in to edit. It's also going to make it so that you can search Unsplash and Pexels right from the tool. So rather than having to go out and search for an image beforehand and download it to your computer and re-upload it, you'll be able to search and pull that image in automatically from the Upload Embed Image tool. So it'll keep things kind of contained here rather than having to go out and search or download separately. Any questions on the Upload Embed Image tool? So again, working down the sidebar here, the next thing we run into is the add and edit navigation. Now these are all just kind of core to design tools, these items here, but you can come in and you can edit any of this text. So maybe instead of start here, you want this to say begin here. Maybe you want to completely rename syllabus. You can edit those navigation items right here from the sidebar. You can also quickly come in and change out any of those icons if you don't like them. Now with the navigation, currently you can have up to 8 navigation items. So I want to come in here and I'm going to add in 2 new items. So I have new items 1 and 2. Now they don't match up well with those above them because they don't have icons associated with them yet. So I'm going to come in here to this little box next to it and I'm going to click on it. It'll open up the icon tools. Instead of searching for a keyword, maybe I want to look at the different categories this time. And I'm going to look at the audio video. Maybe this one, I want it to be this little megaphone, bullhorn, and this one here is going to be headphones. So you can see how you can add those in, and now they match up a little bit better with those above them. You'll notice that those 2 new items we just created have a broken link next to them. That's because we have not yet set destinations for those links. Navigation items are always set up as links. Now, this is where we have to take a step back and just kind of explain how Canvas works with links, because we find that a lot of designers and faculty members aren't updating links correctly. If you are creating a brand new link out of text, such as this here, if we want to turn this into a link, we're going to go ahead and highlight that text, and we can choose a destination where that link is going to take us, or we could have selected or added in a URL. That's pretty straightforward, but the place that we find that people have problems with is editing an existing link, because a lot of times they'll come back in and they'll highlight that link again and set a new destination to it or add a new URL to it. But what happens when you do that is that you start getting this pile up of little squares and arrows after your link, especially if you're taking them outside of Canvas, because by highlighting and setting a new destination to it, it leaves remnants of the old link left behind. So that's why you get those little arrows and boxes piled up after links. The correct way to edit an existing link is not to highlight it. All you need to do is put your cursor within that link and set a new destination or set a URL to it. So again, if you're updating an existing link, you don't want to highlight it, you just want to put your cursor within that link and update it. Since these are already created as links, we're just going to put our cursor within that item and set a destination to it. Maybe this one we want to add a URL. So that's how you can update those destinations. It's not going to show those links as corrected automatically, but if we come in here to refresh list, you can see that they now have destinations set to them. Same thing as with your content blocks. If you wanted to rearrange them, you have the ability to drag and drop to rearrange. You can also use the X button to delete out any of these items. With the split list feature here, I am going to go to one of the themes where it has the navigation hovering, just to show you this. So I said you could have up to 8 items in your navigation, but those 8 items are always going to be broken up over 2 lists. So with this split list, you can see that currently it's set at 4. So it has the first 4 items showing up here, and it's cutting that list at 4 and pushing the other 2 items into their own list. If I was to split this list at 2, you can see that it's cutting that list at 2 and pushing everything over into the second list. So ideally, with 6 items here, I want to split it at 3, and now I have an even number of navigation items on each side. Any questions at all about working with the navigation? A couple other things about the Upload Embed Image tool. Everyone at your institution has access to the Upload Embed Image tool. So if you are a course admin and you are uploading an image to within a content page, that image is going to be saved to your course files. If you have a student that's uploading and embedding an image to a discussion or an assignment, that image is actually, or that file is actually going to be saved to that student's personal files. Not only can you use the Upload Embed Image tool to embed an image into the banner image area, but you can also use it to upload and embed an image anywhere within your content. All you would need to do is put your cursor at that point that you want the image uploaded and embedded at, and it will upload and embed wherever your cursor is at. All right, now we're going to take a look at the multi-tool. And remember, this is the real time saver of design tools. I'm going to move over to a blank course that I have open. And this is a course by course tool. So once you're in a course, you'll want to come down to settings, and then you'll want to go to navigation to turn this tool on. So we can either click on this multi-tool and drag it up into the active navigation, or we could have right-clicked to enable it. Once we have it up there in the active panel, we're going to hit save. And now it'll show up over here in your left-hand navigation. This isn't a tool that you have to hide after you're done using it. It will not show up to your students at all. So it's only going to be visible to the course admins. Once it shows up in the sidebar, I can go ahead and select it. And then you'll notice we have a number of new tools we can start working with here. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is the template builder. I'm going to go ahead and select template builder. And if you've worked with Canvas for a while, you know that setting up your front page and marking it as home takes some different clicks and links on a couple different pages. With the tools, instead of having to jump around on a few different pages and to go through all of the steps to set that home front page, you'll have a button here that says create home front page. This will create a front page and mark it as published for you. Once that is selected, you'll notice you have 2 additional buttons here. This second button down here will set your home link as your front page. So if you want the home link on your left-hand navigation to take you to that front page, all you need to do is select that button there. So with those 2 clicks of those buttons, you've created a front page, marked it as published, and set that home link to take you there. You do have the option to jumping straight to that home page and editing it from this point too, if you wanted to. But this area down here is where we can start working and building out templates within our course. So let's say we're teaching a course, and we know that in each of our modules or units, whatever you want to call them, we want there to be a page called Overview. So this will be something like Overview to Unit 1, Overview to Unit 2, and we're just going to build out this template. So I'm going to go ahead and type Overview, and I'm going to click on this Create Template page, or I could also just hit Enter and it would create that template for me. And as we create these template pages, it's going to start listing them out for us down here. So now it's created a page within my course and labeled it as a template. I also want there to be a lab assignment in each of my modules, a group discussion, and an end of unit quiz. So these are going to be, just off the top of my head, these are going to be the pages that I want to reoccur module after module. Once I have those templates built, or once I have them created, I'm going to go into these individually and start building out these individual templates. So this template overview, I'm going to go ahead and select it. It's going to open up a new tab for me and have it ready for me to start editing. And for this overview page that's going to reoccur in all of my modules, I'm going to come into the theme tools and I'm going to select a theme. I'm not going to edit the banner text at this time because I'm going to show you in just a moment that it's going to update as we push all of these pages out. So I'm not going to update that at this point, but I am going to add in some content blocks. So on this overview to my modules or to my weeks or my units, I want there to be an introduction to that unit or that module. I want there to be a list of readings that my students are going to look over for that week, maybe some lecture videos I want them to view. Maybe I want a list of assignments for them. So in general, this is what I want there to be on my overview to that particular module. I'm going to click Save. And you can see that now I have this template built out that I can pull into each module and come in and edit with the content that needs to go on that page. So I now have this template page that I can use as a starting point for all of my modules. I'm going to go ahead and close out this tab and go back to the multi-tool. And at this point, I would continue working through these template pages and building them out. So again, you don't want to edit the headings at this point. You are just creating that basic template for your pages. Now, with the quizzes, discussions, and assignments, if you set up some of those more detailed settings, such as threaded discussions or maybe one question at a time on a quiz, you can set those up at the template level and it will follow them down as you push those templates out to pages. For time's sake, we're going to say that I've already built out all of those templates and we're going to move on to the next step, which is the module builder. So if I come up here, we're looking at the template builder. We're going to move on to the module builder. And you'll see that we have this area here called module pattern. And this particular course, we're going to call that, we want our modules to be called, we could call them weeks, we could call them units. So we're going to call these units. And we're going to, this is just a short course, maybe we're just going to have 3 units. And I want them to start at unit 1. Maybe in our weird case that we're in right now, we don't need to build out unit 1, that's already gone past. We want to start it at unit 5. You could also have it start at unit 5 and then it would name it 5, 6, 7. So this is going to be the number that you want that unit to start at. Then you're going to start building out that pattern you want for your modules. So for these modules I'm creating, I want a page. It's going to be called Overview. I want it to pull in that template for the overview page we just created. I want there to be an assignment in my modules. I can give it a name. I want it to pull in the lab template we said we created. I want it to be submitted online, and I want it to show up, or I want it to be worth 50 points and displayed as a points value for my students. I want there to be a discussion. Again, I can give it a name, whatever name I want. It's going to be based off the group template that we created. It's going to be worth 20 points and displayed as a points value. And I want there to be a quiz, again, basing it off of the template we created. So in general, this is the outline for my modules, for these units that I'm creating. Each one of these pages, as you saw when we built out that template page for overview, has content blocks within it. I hope that makes more sense now, Kimberly. So that overview page that we created, that template, has a number of different content blocks that were used to build out that page. But now we're actually building out all of those individual pages. This, at this point, is just an outline for our modules. So once we have that outline built out, we can come here to Generate Module List. And you'll see below that outline, we now have all 3 of those modules outlined. So we now have Units 1, Units 2, Units 3. One thing I forgot to show you is when you're choosing that module prefix, you also have the option to not give it a prefix, or if you don't like any of these that we've created for you so far, then you're welcome to also create your own custom text as a prefix. But we've called all of these units, so we now have units 1, 2, and 3. We can give those units names. This one we're just going to call Welcome to Class. This one's going to be Midterm Week, and this one's going to be Finals Week. And this is still an outline at this point. So we can start coming in and manipulating these modules. Maybe this week 1, this is the first week of class, and we decided we don't want to have a quiz for our students. We're going to go ahead and delete that quiz. But we do want there to be an extra discussion. We're going to have our students introduce themselves to one another maybe. So we're going to add in that extra discussion. Maybe we still want to bring in that template. Maybe this one isn't going to be graded. We could leave it blank if we wanted. We could drag it up earlier in the week if we want to. So this allows you to come in and manipulate those individual modules. The last week of class, this unit 3, maybe we want there to be an extra exam. It's going to be the final exam. It's going to have a different look and feel to it. Maybe I want to drag up that quiz earlier in the week. So this gives you the chance to come in and build out the outline for each individual module. Once you have the outline completed, oh, one other thing here. If you only want the prefix to show up in your module title, you can uncheck these unit 1. So if you didn't want unit 2 to have unit 2 overview, unit 2 assignment 1, we could come in and we could uncheck those units to remove that prefix. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment, but I'm just going to unselect or deselect that for this particular unit. For this unit up here, if you like to use the indentation feature or organization feature for your modules page, you can set up your indents on this outline. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment when we push these out. But you have two options here once you've created this outline. You can save your progress. So if you save your progress, it's just going to save this outline. It's not going to create all of these individual pages for you right now. It's just saving the outline. If you save the outline, that gives you time to come in here and maybe you need to further manipulate the individual modules to get it exactly how you want it to look. Maybe you need to run it by another faculty member or program chair to make sure it has everything that you need. This gives you time to work on this outline without creating all of these pages. So if there's any changes you need to make, you'll be able to just make it here rather than having to go in and delete pages that might not be needed later on. If you save the progress, you have up to 2 weeks to come in here and make any changes. If you don't come into this page or make any changes within 2 weeks, it's going to delete the outline. So again, this is just an outline at this point. It's not deleting any pages from your course, it's just deleting this outline. You can imagine if you have, where most institutions have 16 weeks in each semester, if you have a lot, or if you're going in and building out all of those outlines for those 16 weeks, it creates a lot of additional information that can really bog down your system. So if it sees this course is not an active build, that you're not in here working with this outline, it'll delete this information after 2 weeks. But if you come in here at any point during that 2 weeks to work on this outline, it'll restart that 2 weeks. So it'll restart that counter for you as long as you're in here working with the outline. If your outline is good, you're ready to start creating all of these different pieces within your course. What you need to do is you need to select this Add Modules to Course. So you can see by selecting all modules to course, it's creating all of those individual pieces. So for us, when I was an instructional designer at Utah State, we'd have a faculty member come in the morning and they'd meet with us for an hour or so, and we'd spend all afternoon to a couple of days building out that course shell for that faculty member. Now with this module builder tool, a lot of times they're leaving the office with that shell already created with them. It creates it in a matter of seconds. So it's already created all of those pages within our course. If we come over to the modules page, you can see that all of the modules are listed out here. Units 1, 2, and 3. You can see where I set up the indentation level, how it has that organization feature set up here if you like to use that. Where I unchecked that prefix, you can see how it's removed the unit 2. This one has that unit 1, but I removed it here. So it does not have that unit 2 before each of those pages. If I come into that overview page where we created that template, you'll notice that it's updated the heading and it's pulled in that template so it's ready for me to start importing or creating content within this page. So rather than having to copy and paste and create all of those pages individually and copy code over from page to page, now you already have all of those pages created, all of those templates pulled in, those settings already set up for you in a matter of seconds rather than sometimes taking days to create all of that. I'm going to come back over to the multi-tool and go back to the module builder. And you'll see that I now have units 1, 2, and 3. This is extremely handy because even if you didn't build out your course structure with the module builder, if you have your course already set up within modules, you're still going to have access, or it's still going to show up here in your existing modules. So let's say you just started using the tools, but you want to come in and add in additional assignments. Now that we have all this weird stuff coming on, we can come in here and we can take a look at all of those modules and we can say we actually need to add in another assignment and a discussion. We could set up anything we need here. Maybe weeks 2, we need to add in another quiz and a discussion. So at any point during your course, you can come in here to the module builder and add in or remove those extra pieces, even if you didn't create your course with the module builder initially. Now, if you needed to rearrange, maybe you just needed to rearrange pieces within your module, you're able to drag and drop and rearrange pieces. If I collapse all again, maybe because of the way classes are set up now, I need to even rearrange my modules. I can move one module, let's see, one module to another place within the course. I can always come in here and rename if needed. So it makes it really easy, especially if you've already taught a course and you need to do a major revision, to come in there and move around those pieces and all on one page rather than having to jump around to get that course reorganized and created. Okay, if a chapter is made up of a collection of modules, how do you create a chapter? For example, if you want a pre-test, post-test for each chapter, how would you do that? So going back to the modules page, are you using headings to do that? Like you're giving, let me show you what I'm thinking that you might be doing.
I would give a heading. So like if the 3 chapters that you just created, or 3 units, if you wanted all those to be like combined into one chapter, what would that look like?
Okay, so I'm going to create a new module. I'm going to call it a chapter. And I'm going to create 2, starting at 2, and I am just going to give it a header. And I'm going to name it chapter. So I've created those 2 modules that I'm calling chapter. I'm going to add them to my course. So I now have this chapter 1 and 2. Chapter 1, I'm going to move it there. So I want 2 units to be in chapter 1 and 1 unit to be in chapter 2. And then if I come over to the modules page, you can see under chapter 1, I mean, you wouldn't be able to, you would have chapter 1 and then you would have the 2 units within it. Then you would have chapter 2 and the 1 unit in it. Is that kind of how you set up your course?
Kinda, but let's say for chapter 1, I wanted to get an idea of what students know for like the first 3 units. So I wanted to do a pre-test. Is that possible?
Yeah, so you could still add in a test to that chapter.
Okay.
So again, if we went into the multi-tool for in the module builder, we could say that in chapter 1, we want a quiz. It's going to be called the pre-test. We can update that module. And then we could even have a post-test at the end. Chapter 2, before they get into this, maybe we also want there to be a pre-test. Update the module. And now when we go over to the modules, you'll have chapter 1 and a pre-test, and then they can move on to those units. You could even have chapter 1 have, hang on, let me show you something else here. So instead of chapter 1, maybe we want we don't really want this Unit 1 to be a separate module. Maybe we want to, and this we're not going to be able to do, but we could have just created all of that Unit 1 under Chapter 1 and indented it. So you could have Unit 1 with all of its content. So there's a lot of different ways you can kind of, and really it's just instructor preference on how you want to organize your modules page. But this does make it a lot easier to come in and rearrange those into whatever setup that you want. The other option that you have here that's very handy is if you go to your modules page and you wanted to delete out a module completely, when you delete a module, all of those pages and content that are stored within that module are still going to be hanging out in the background. So those files will still be there, which all of that can cause a lot of confusion for your students that need accessibility accommodations because they can see all that stuff, but they're not sure where it's linked to or where it's going to be used. So instead of just deleting out the module, with the module builder, you can delete out the module and its contents. So that will delete that module and everything that's associated with it so that all those pages are no longer just kind of hanging out there in the background. All right, any other questions with the module builder right now? So the next piece we have within the multi-tool is the due date modifier. The due date modifier is going to list out all of those pieces that we created on that previous page or in the module builder. Even if you didn't create it with the module builder, it's going to list out all of those assignments within your course. So right now, this could be a really important tool for you because you need to change all of those due dates. If you had due dates already set up for you, it would pull those due dates in for you and you could easily come in here and manipulate them. So if you, let's say you rolled over a course, and Canvas does a pretty good job about rolling over due dates and adjusting them, but there's always going to be something in there, some holiday or something that you need to come in and kind of tweak those due dates. This makes it quick and easy for you to go through and edit all of those due dates on one page rather than having to go from assignment to assignment, discussion to discussion. So with this, we could come in here. Now this is of course is a brand new course, but if you already had a course existing, it would pull in those due dates and you could simply click on that due date and choose a due date for it. It is going to pull in a default time for you. The default time set by us is 11:59 p.m. But if you don't like 11:59, you could come in here to set default times and say that you want it due instead maybe at 8 a.m. And now when we go to set a new due date, maybe we want this due there, it's going to pull in that new default time that you've set for it. Now you do want to update these, especially if you have a long list of due dates, you do want to go through and update those. If you just have a couple though, there is this update all down at the bottom that you can use too. Let's say that you're a faculty member and you set all of your discussions to be due on Monday, but you find that that's causing a lot of stress for your students and you want to move all of those discussions instead to a Wednesday. You do have some filters up here. So you could come in and look for all of the discussions and you could quickly come through and update those. Or you also have this bulk update. So let's say all of these discussions are set on a Monday. They already have due dates set on a Monday, but we want to come in and go to the bulk updates. And we can say we want to move all of these 2 days. We could select these discussions, change those dates to advance 2 days, and then all of those discussions would be changed from a Monday to a Wednesday. This is also very handy if you have maybe spring break is coming up and you want to move everything, depending on your semester, you want to move week 3. I guess I got rid of that. Let's see. Week 2. Oops, I forgot to clear these. So we're going to look for, oh, and I used unit instead. So unit 2. And I got rid of that prefix too. Sorry, I'm striking out today. Unit 3. So I can come in and I can select all of those unit 3s. And I can say I want to bulk update those and move them back a week. I could change those dates and then it'll move that all of those unit 3, so all of that week back or forward as needed. The other options you have on this page are the blackout dates. So if you are forgetful like me and you can't remember where the holidays fall within a term, this is a user by user setting. So you can come in and set days that you don't want to have anything due on. Maybe, let's say there's a holiday next week. Maybe spring break was this week. Maybe just in general, we don't want to have anything due on Sundays. Now, when we come to look at a due date, you'll notice that those days have been grayed out. So it's just a quick reminder for you as the user that, oh, there was something going on that week, or maybe it's spring break and I don't want to have something due. So again, this is a user by user setting you can set up ahead of time. Any questions at all on the due date modifier? The last piece of the multi-tool is the delayed announcement modifier. So if you're rolling over a course and you have a number of delayed announcements and you need to go in and tweak those delayed announcement dates, you would have them all listed here on this page, just like you would have with the due date modifier on the previous page. And you can come in and quickly manipulate those days to match your current course. Any questions at all on any of the aspects of the multi-tool? All right, jumping back to the course that we're working through. With copying existing content, this is a way to pull in templates or pages that you want to use as a starting point when you're building out a new page. So the copy existing content is always going to show up as a little orange icon in the jump menu. So it'll either be right here as an orange item, or it's under create and edit content if it's not showing up there. And this is where you can pull in pages to use as a starting point. So with the top item here, if you've created templates within your page, you can select any of or within your course, sorry about that. If you have templates within your course, you can pull them in to use as a starting point. Now I say starting point because you'll notice as I select any of these, it's overwriting what's currently within your rich content editor. So if you accidentally pull in any of these and it overwrites your content, you can use this undo button and it will step it back. So kind of a Control Z. Institutional so with all course pages, if there's a page within your course that you want to pull in, maybe you worked really hard on it and it has a lot of the information you need or the structure that you need, and you want to pull that in as a starting point and update it with the current content, you're able to pull in any course pages. Institutional templates, maybe you want to create templates at an institutional level. This one here is just one that Utah State uses that hits on a lot of their course quality rubric measures. So faculty members have this template they can pull in and update with their course information. Copy content by URL. So this is handy if you just want to pull in a single page from another course. Maybe as you're building out your course, you remember that 2 semesters ago there was a course that you created and it had a really awesome table on it and you don't want to have to recreate it again. You could go back to that course, find the URL for that page. So you do want to make sure it has the specific page identifiers on it, such as this. This is just a general course URL, so it won't pull in, this won't work. You'll actually get a message letting you know that, but you do want to have those specific page identifiers on it. You can paste it into this copy content by URL and have it pull in that specific page from the other course. The thing you do want to be aware of though, when you're copying content by URL, if your previous course, that page that you're pulling in had a number of linked assets, such as images or PDFs, you want to save those linked assets to your computer and re-upload them to your current course. Canvas does not like you to be able to share files between courses. So for you as an instructor or a designer, they may show, when you're looking at that page, they may show up for you, those linked assets, but for your students who don't have access to that previous course, they're going to show up as broken. So again, if you're copying content by URL, you want to download those images or PDFs or whatever files from that previous course and re-upload them into your current course so that they work properly for your students. Any questions on copying existing content? All right, we've gone over all of the different ways now that you can pull in content and give yourself a good starting point. Now we're going to get into the basic styling features. And we don't have that much time left. I'm going to keep going, but I understand if you have to drop off, if you have a hard stop today, and I will get this sent out to you once it's done processing, but you can still get this information if you have to drop off. All right, so with customize the style, first we're going to take a look at images. Now with images, a lot of times faculty members want to be able to wrap content or wrap the text around the image, and they'll try to use some of the native tools, so maybe this one here. And when you try to wrap that text around the image, you'll notice that it butts the text right up against that edge of that image. And not only does it look bad, but it causes some issues. It renders it completely useless for some certain learning disabilities. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And I'm going to come over here to customize the style because, as I said earlier, this is where you work with tables, images, links, and lists. And because I have an image selected, it's going to already be populated with the tools to work with this image. Now, I'm going to use the same icon over here, the image alignment, and by selecting it over here in the sidebar, you can see that you now have some breathing room between that text and the image. I can also center align it, or maybe I want to float it to the right and wrap the text around it. So you have some options there, but it's completely usable for all of your students. If you want to remove it back to its original state, you can use the X button to do that. You'll notice that this image is currently marked as a decorative image. That's flagging it for Canvas's own accessibility features. But if we wanted to give this image alt text, we can uncheck that decorative image and type in alt text for it here. If we wanted to change the size of this image, maybe we want it to be a little bit larger, we can type in a size and you can see it updates it here in the sidebar. And then we have some different styles we can apply to it. So maybe we want a rounded image or a rounded image with a border, square image with a border. You can see now that that style has been added to that particular image. So there's a few different pre-designed styles that you can add to your images there. Scrolling down a little bit, you may have noticed there's a couple toggles here. If we want this image to always fill its container, so this is its container that's showing here, this outlined area, I can turn on the fill width, and now that image is completely filling its canvas or its container within the rich content editor. Or maybe you're working with an image that's just lesser quality to begin with, and we want to turn on, we don't ever want it to get to a point where it's stretched out to where it looks pixelated and hard to view. We can turn on this max width fill, and now this image will never grow beyond whatever size has been set to it. So you can type in a custom size, you can leave it at its original size, but you don't want it to get any larger. Now the image will still be responsive, so it'll still get smaller if it needs to within the browser, but it'll never get scaled out to a point where it becomes pixelated and hard to view. So that's what the max width fill is for. Moving on to links. Again, if we want to create a new link, we're going to highlight that text and set a destination or set a URL to it. But if we're just editing an existing link, again, we just want to put our cursor within that link and choose a destination or set a URL. Same thing goes when you're styling a link. We just want to put our cursor within the link we want to style. On the sidebar here, you'll notice that you have a place where you can upload or update the text for that particular link. You can change the destination for that link. This particular link here, I want it to maybe open in a new tab. So I'm going to turn on this toggle here. Canvas does a good job. If you're sending them outside of Canvas, it'll open up a new tab for you. But a lot of times if you're just trying to take them to another Canvas page, it won't open a new tab. So you're welcome to turn this on to ensure that your students always get a new tab. The next two links, I'm going to turn on this indicate visited toggle. So with the indicate visited, you'll notice that the one we haven't visited has this little warning color icon next to it, while the one we have has this green, you're good to go color next to it. Kenneth, our developer, taught a course where he ditched the textbook and had a number of open education resources, which created a long list of links within his course. Now, as he was taking his students out of his course, he was taking them to a page, I think it was W3 Schools, where it had its own native navigation built into the page or into the modules there that they were working through. And so as they worked through this module, it would report back to the page and they'd be able to see if they missed looking at any of those links, and they could jump right back in and get that information that was missed. This is very handy if you have students that like to go through all of the content at once, or if they just like to stay within the same browser. If you have students that like to jump around from browser to browser or computer to computer, it's not as useful because browsers don't want you to be able to track, for instance, where people are banking at, so it won't track that information for you. But again, if you're staying on the same browser or go through all of the content at once, that is a really handy tool for your students. If we want to give a link an icon, we can just put our cursor anywhere within that link, come here to the icon button, and maybe this time we want to look for medical, maybe this little ambulance. So you can see it's going to add an icon onto the beginning of that link. If we want to make a link a button, there's a variety of different button styles here we can select from. A lot of them have different hover states. We also have a number of sizes that you can select from. So maybe you want it to be really small or large, or you want it to be a block style. And those can also be mix and matched with the different styles above. If you don't like the style and you want to remove that button style, you can always come here to remove style and it'll take it back to its original link state. With tables, you're still going to add tables in the same way. So you're going to come up to the native tool and we're going to add a 4x4 table. But the problem we heard from faculty members is that they would spend, especially if they had a complex table, spend hours making sure it was accessible for their students, because they'd have to put in the content and then they'd have to come back in and they'd have to work with the cell and row properties and set the scopes to make it accessible for their students. But now with the tools, I'm going to scroll down to this table here that already has content in it. And I'm going to put my cursor anywhere within this table. And you'll notice over here in the sidebar, I can set a head row, or maybe the left-hand column needs to be a head column. This particular table does have a total row, so I'm going to turn on a foot row. I'm going to make it alphanumerically sortable, and I want to add a table caption. All of these are completely accessible options to create that table for your students. Now, if you want to add some style to your table to make it look a little bit more refined, a little bit more professional, there are different Canvas and legacy styles that you can add, such as this hovering row to help your students track where they're at in a long table. Maybe you want this alternating zebra striped gray and white background, and you can combine that with the row hover too. Maybe you want it to be a little bit smaller, and then again, you do have those legacy styles. If you need to change the column width at all or work with the table width, you do have the ability to work with any of those by pixels or percentage to make sure that table is going to look exactly how you want it to look within your content. With your ordered lists, you still can use the tab key or the increase indent up here to indent your lists. But once you have the tools, you also have the ability to indent over here in the sidebar. This just keeps you from having to rainbow back and forth across the page. If you click within a list, it's going to open up the list tools over here in the sidebar. And we can say that for ordered lists, maybe we want this to be a lowercase alpha or uppercase alpha or Roman numeral. You can change that list style very easily. Same thing goes with unordered lists. So we can come in here and select any of those bullet styles. If you just want a simple indented list, you can use the none to remove that style and just create an indented list. The X will take you back to the original style there. Maybe you need to put some content between numbers 4 and 5. And when you try to do that, it restarts that list for you. So instead of having to go in and manipulate the HTML, instead we can come over to this list start and we can say we want to start this list at number 5. So now you can have space to put in your content there and restart it easily. Maybe you just have a unique list where you need to count by tens. You can use this list number. Maybe we want this to be 10, and this next one needs to be 20, 30. So if you have a unique list numbering system that you need to use, this item number does come in very handy. With the complex list styles, maybe this main list level you want to be in uppercase alpha. The second level you want it to be a bullet point, and the third level you just want it to be a simple indented list. You can see how it's really quick and easy to make those more complex list styles. The pill list option is just something quick and fun that Kenneth threw in just because. But we weren't sure how anybody was going to actually use it. Again, he just threw it in because it was fun and easy for him to do. It creates this cute little rounded edge list, but we found that a number of institutions were using it to create a horizontal navigation list. So that's when he added in this basic nav links. Now with this list here, you'll notice that it's both links and a list. So as we select in here, it's going to open up both of those tools. And we can turn on that basic nav links, and we now have that nice little horizontal navigation link list. So you saw there how I clicked on something that was both a link and a list. It opened up both of those types of tools for me. Also, if you have an image that's a link within a list, it'll open up all 3 of those tools for you. So it is responsive to what you're working with within your content. Any questions on the basic styling features? The next thing we're going to take a look at is the iframes. If you've worked with iframes at all, you know that they can be a real pain to work with. They're notoriously hard to work with because if you have them on your page and you accidentally click on them, they just start playing. Even trying to remove them from your page, a lot of times people end up leaving remnants of that iframe left behind. You're still going to embed iframes the same way. So you'll go to the native tool and you'll embed media. But once you have an iframe on your page, you're going to have a new navigation item within your jump menu. Now this page does take a little bit to upload because it does have a number of iframes on it. So the iframe jump menu item is this little one right here. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And you'll notice now it's going to open up that iframes area. And I have iframe 1. All of the iframes that are housed on this page are now listed over here in the sidebar. And I can focus in on any of those. And it will focus in the rich content editor. Maybe this one here, I want to make a bit smaller. Maybe I want to change this to 400 and I want to wrap text around it. I can use any of these items here to float it to the left or right and wrap the text around it. I can change out the source code. Maybe this one, iframe 2, I don't want it. I can use the red X button to delete it completely from my content. And again, you can scroll down and focus in on any of those iframes that you want to style. Now, if your school uses the website h5p.org, h5p.org is a fun website that helps you build out interactive learning tools for your students, such as little matching games and fun things that you can use. It's not going to list out all of those options to work with those H5P iframes because H5P has its own set of rules that are brought in when you bring in their content. But this does give you the option to delete out those iframes easily or to change the source code for that particular iframe. Any questions at all on working with iframes? Next, we're going to take a look at the 3 accessibility tools. So as you edit a page, DesignPlus is going through and scanning your content to see if it finds anything that might cause accessibility issues for your students. As it's scanning the page, if it does find anything, a little red eye icon will show up here under our next to check accessibility. And we can come in here and you can see that all 3 of those accessibility tools want me to take a look at them. So I can select heading outline and you're going to see that it's giving me a outline of all of those headings here. Now it's alerting me to the ones where I've skipped a heading level going down. This can cause a lot of confusion for your screen reading students because that's how they recognize how different pieces of content relate to one another. But a lot of times faculty members aren't aware of how important that heading structure is for students, and they'll use the heading structure just to change the font size within the content. And that can also cause causes a lot of confusion. So if I am, while it's not going to be able to alert you to that, you can scan down through your content and take a look. So I have this heading level 1 accessibility, scrolling down, I have heading structure, the try it box, but then within the same content block here, you can see that this heading A is very large. And that's because it's listed as a higher heading level than the main heading for this block. So what I can do is I can use this tool to go in and adjust that heading structure and quickly clean it up so that it's going to make sense for my screen reading students. Now, within Canvas, you have the ability to use up to an H4, but H5 and H6 are also perfectly fine heading structures to use. So you could set it as an H4 here within the tools or within the native tools, and then use this heading outline to quickly move it out to an H5 or an H6. Once you have that heading structure cleaned up, we can move on to the image check. And it's going to pull all of the images out over here into the sidebar and give you the ability to quickly go through and update any of that alt text. So as we're scrolling down here, you can see it's flagging this one. It notices that it has some default file name text here. We know from the previous page this is actually showing us a rounded image without border, so we can come in here and we can edit that alt text for that image. This one here doesn't have anything at all. Maybe it's actually a decorative image. We could check that, and it just makes it really easy to go through and edit all of the alt text for your images. If there's one piece within the help area you want to take a look at, it is this image text, this alt text area. It has some really great information on how to make sure your students, or how to make sure your alt text is going to be most meaningful for your students. Link check, this isn't looking to see if your links are valid. You already have the native link validator within Design Tools, or within the native tools. What this is doing is it's pulling your links out of context to make sure they're going to make sense for your students. So as your students that are using screen readers are going down through their links, it's going to read something such as link, content heading structure, link, image alternative text. When it gets down to these that are flagged, all it's going to read is link, click here, link more, link, click for details. These don't make any sense at all to your screen reading students. And really, even for any of your students, they get to this, maybe they've already read through their content and they get to this click here and they have to read the sentence before or the sentence after or the whole paragraph to figure out where that link is going to take them. When something really as simple as read the syllabus would have made a lot more sense to all of your students. So this makes it really quick and easy to go through and edit that link text. Any questions at all on the accessibility tools? There are a couple of syllabus tools I'm just going to show you very quickly. So of course, when you're building out a syllabus, you do want to make sure that you have the first thing you do is you want to select a theme for that syllabus page. I'm going to come into the puzzle piece and choose a theme. But when I come in to add content blocks for a syllabus page, you'll notice that the content blocks are specific to a syllabus. So when we get to level 3 of training, which is the admin training, I'll show you where you're going to create these institutional blocks. But Canvas treats in the syllabus pages and basic pages as a completely different beast. So when you are working with the syllabus, you're going to have specific template blocks for syllabus pages. You also have the ability to pull in the Canvas grading scheme on your syllabus pages. So if I come in here to Canvas grade scheme, I can add the grade scheme block if it's been set up. If your faculty members haven't set up a grade scheme, it'll give them some tool tips to walk through to build or to learn how to build out a grade scheme. Or if they were to come in anytime and change their grade scheme, they can use this refresh and it will pull in any updates to that grading scheme. Institutional policies and procedures, I'm going to go ahead and add example policies block, and you'll notice that we now have a brand new type of content block that we haven't seen yet. And the reason for this is that a lot of faculty members or a lot of institutions would say that maybe faculty members went out and found an archived version of policies and procedures and pulled it in, or maybe they have been teaching the course for the last 5 years and never updated the policies since the first time they taught it, Or maybe even they have some faculty members that go through and edit those institutional policies and procedures to match what they want rather than what's actually been dictated by the institution. So the reason this is the one place within Design Tools where what's in this block cannot be edited by your faculty. And what it does is it reaches out to the institutional level customizations course, and it pulls in the most recent copy of policies and procedures. So that way, when faculty members come in to edit their syllabus, every time they edit their syllabus, it's going to reach out and pull in the most recent copy of institutional policies and procedures so that you're assured you're always having the most recent updates there. You no longer have to worry about those getting outdated or being changed in a way that doesn't match the institutional policies and procedures. Any questions at all on the syllabus tools? All right, now for the fun part. This is the second to last page within this course. This is styling existing content. So if you've been working with Canvas for a while, you probably have a number of pages that just kind of look like this. They're just very basic HTML, but we're gonna go through and give this page a quick facelift. So this is a page we pulled in from Canvas Commons on gamification. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to choose a theme for this page. So I'm going to come to the puzzle piece and choose a theme. There's that beginning and the end of the Design Tools wrapper. I'm going to come up to add content blocks, and I am going to highlight that first chunk of content. And we're going to come to this button down at the bottom of the add content blocks that says selection to block. I'm going to click on selection to block, and you can see now that that chunk of content that I highlighted has been pulled into its own content block within the Design Tools wrapper. So I'm going to continue working my way down through my content, but to make it even faster, I'm going to hold my shift key and click at the end of the next paragraph and use selection to block. Again, I'm going to hold my shift key, click at the end of the paragraph, shift, click, selection to block, and I'm going to quickly work my way through my content here and pull it all up into the Design Tools wrapper into its own content blocks. Now, a lot of times when you're copying and pasting content or pulling it into content blocks, you're going to end up with little orphaned empty pieces. We can use remove empty to clear any of those empty pieces out. Once I have all of that pulled into content blocks within the content or the Design Tools wrapper, the next thing I like to do is I like to come down to the accessibility and the heading tool. I know I added in this stylized heading, so I want to push everything out underneath it. Then I like to come up to the create and edit content, and this guy here is a game designer, so maybe I want to give him an icon that's associated with a game. I'm going to give him a little controller. This guy here is also a game designer. I'm going to give him a ghost, and I'm just going to continue on with my gaming theme here and throw in some icons. So you can see now all of those content blocks have an icon. Scrolling back through my content, this guy here, maybe I want to work with his image. I'm going to come in to customize the style. I'm going to update his alt text. Maybe I want to float him to the left, give him a rounded image with a border. This guy down here, maybe I want to update his alt text, float him to the right, give him a square image with a border. And then this image here is just really large. So maybe I want to make it a bit smaller. I'll change this to 500. And I want to center it and give it some style too. So now if I go ahead and save this page, you can see that it's been given a quick Design Tools facelift, so it'll match and blend in better with the new pages you're creating with design tools. All right, last page. We're going to go over the Get Help section really quick. And the first thing you run into in the Get Help section is a link to the user guide. So if you have any questions as you're working with the tools, you come down here to Get Help. This user guide will give you just quick links to the user guide. So if you remember you want to edit a table, but you don't remember how to edit it, but you remember that images, tables, links, and lists are all come up under Customize the Style. We can open up Customize the Style and quickly move to that section of the user guide. With the support section, this is something we'll update once we get to the admin level course, but this is just going to be a quick support information for someone at your institution that can help you with just simple questions as you're working through the tools. Release notes, we usually push a release at the beginning of each month. So this is a link to those detailed notes for the release. The star lets you know if a new feature has been added. The cloud lets you know if there's been an update to an existing feature, and the little bug lets you know if any bugs that were squashed that month. Comments and suggestions. For your admins, they have the ability to submit a support ticket right here from the sidebar. So if they come across any bugs as they're working with the tools, they can report it here. If there's anything you find particularly tedious and want us to try to look for a solution to, you can submit a ticket. Or if you just are having any problems with the tools, trying to figure something out, you're welcome to submit a support ticket to us. Credits. Kenneth created design tools with a number of open education resources. So he does have a link here. If you're working on any projects of your own, you're welcome to come here and see what he used to create this tool. Last but not least is our website. So if you come into citylabs.com, up at the top, you'll find support, and anyone can submit a support ticket at our website. So if you have a question, you're welcome to look through the articles that we have posted or the discussion forums to see if we've answered your question before. And then you can submit a support ticket right here from the website. Anybody, again, can submit a support ticket from here. We do recommend at least a couple admins at each institution come in here and submit a support ticket. This helps us with our database of people we can contact at your institution. Since I work the support tickets, a lot of times I'll get faculty members that have questions that are specific to your institution, or maybe it's more of a Canvas related question. By having your admins, I'm able to, having their information in the database, I'm able to connect them with the correct people for institutional support. So even if it's just to come in here and say hello, this does give me your information so that I can connect them. Also, if we ever have a system outage planned, we do let you know in advance. I believe it's a week in advance according to our contracts. So this gives us a list of people to contact to let you know ahead of time of any updates that are coming or outages that are coming. You also have the link to Slack customer community. This is a place that we, if you have questions for other users of design tools, you're welcome to come in here and ask for examples or support on what others have done. Again, this is if you want to ask other people at other institutions. If you have a question that's more of for us, please keep that to the support tickets. It's just easier for us to keep track of them there and assign them to the correct person. But the customer community, we're trying to grow so that we can share what others have created with our tools with other institutions that might have questions. Roadmap. Kenneth keeps a pretty good track of the roadmap of features he has coming up that he's currently working on, or suggestions that have been submitted to us over time. If you see your suggestion listed on the roadmap, don't let that keep you from from submitting it again, it helps us keep track of what our users want and might help move it up in the queue a little bit higher. But that is it for Functional User Training 1. Sorry that went over today. If you have any questions, I still have time. I'm free to answer them. I will get a copy of this recording out to you so that you can have it for yourself if you have any questions and need to refer back to it. I do ask that you download it on your computer though. Zoom does periodically go through and clear out any of the recordings, so do download it so that you have it for future use. We don't expect you to learn to know everything at the end of these trainings. It is a lot of information, especially tomorrow's training if you're doing Functional User Training 2. It's a lot of information, so we at least want you to know what the tools are capable of so that you're able to go back and refer when you do get to that point that you need that tool or that piece of the tools. Thank you so much for your time today. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Michelle. This was great.
You are welcome. All right. Well, everyone stay healthy. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening.